This is episode 77 of The Variety Artist. This is John Abrams, that guy that interviews successful variety artists from around the world. A couple things before we get into the interview. First, at the end of this interview, Hilby suggests a particular book. I won't tell you what it is, but I've already ordered it, and I'm putting things from this book directly into my show immediately. Next, Hilby talks about his Facebook fan page. I've seen it. It really has some fun things. If you're not a fan yet, you will be after this interview. Follow him on his Facebook fan page. And while you're there, make sure to check out the Variety Artist Community Facebook group. We have a lot of great stuff going on there. Enjoy!
Fun fact number 564. John named his dog after Indiana Jones and the chauffeur in the movie Arthur.
Welcome to The Variety Artist, providing aspiring artists and entertainers with in-depth discussions from top performers from all over the world. So get ready to book some gigs, make some money, and have some fun with your host, John Abrams.
An expert in juggling all sorts of objects, as well as countless circus and variety skills, unicycling, rope walking, unsupported ladder, fire manipulations and eating, balancing stunts, and the list goes on and on. The New York Times says, rivetingly absurd. Cornell Magazine says, this is what it must be like when Mark Mcgwire takes batting practice or Eric Clapton tunes his guitar. Hilby is here. Variety artist, I give you Hilby, the Skinny German Juggle Boy.
Well, hello there.
How's it going, Hilby?
I'm doing great. I'm actually doing really good.
Well, let's start off right. How did you get that name, Hilby, the Skinny German Juggle Boy?
It was an evolution of me flirting with a waitress on a cruise ship, one of my very first gigs. And back then I had that catchy name of Hilby, the Juggling Experience, which nobody remembered for obvious reasons. Yeah. I don't know, it was very flirtatious with the waitress, and she would, doing a show often even, and then she would say like, come on, German boy, and then German Juggle Boy. And one time doing a show, she said, stop it, Skinny German Juggle Boy. And it got the laughter from some audience members, and I repeated it a few times during the show, and that's when I knew I had something, and then I just ran with it.
Okay, just the name itself, it tells the audience that it's kind of tongue-in-cheek and you're going to have fun, right?
Exactly, it's tongue-in-cheek. It's something people can remember. It's nice to have a tag. You know, people, when they remember a show, often they remember like fragments. Oh, remember that German guy, that skinny German juggle dude, or so forth, you know. So it's definitely catchier and more memorable than like the juggling experience.
One of the toughest times we have as entertainers, whether it's magician, juggler, whatever, is people remembering our name. You know, John Abrams. How do you remember John Abrams? Well, I just repeated it twice. That's how you remember it. I repeat it throughout my show. But if you have something that's catchy, like Hilby, the Skinny German Juggle Boy.
Yeah, it's been working for me. And then like I look also at other performers like Checkerboard Guy, you know, like, I know his real name, but I remember him as Checkerboard Guy.
Now, when you first started, did you think that when you came to America and did a lot of shows in America, did you think that the German accent would hold you back a little?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I always sort of subscribe to the philosophy, if you can't hide it, you highlight it. And an interesting thing about accent is, I don't know if you speak another language, but you usually don't hear your own accent. So I'm not really aware of my accent. I know it exists and I know it's there. And now I do highlight it. And I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have an accent. But no, it was never really guiding me in one or another direction, no.
So when you hear me, do I sound like I have an accent to you?
No, you sound like I sound perfectly like normal. But I do know, of course, when I hear to the recording later on, it's like, holy smokes, that's me. Listen to me. I sound like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
You don't sound like Arnold.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting fact. I'm really fascinated by the idea that people don't hear their own accents. Like, or if you have a speaking disorder, even then often you don't hear like the slur in your speech or whatever the disadvantage is you have.
Right. That is interesting, huh? Well, now, for people that haven't seen you, what exactly do you do?
Well, I would say it's like a classic juggling comedy circus show with like this character being the Skinny German Juggle Boy, me, as my father used to say, or Robert Nelson, the Butterfly Man. If you can't hide it, highlight it. Mm-hmm. I highlight the fact that I'm from Germany. I make fun of the stereotypes we all have about Germans and other countries for that matter. It's very interactive. It's really a lot of back and forwards. I leave nothing unnoticed. If the audience sees it, I see it. I comment on it. Yeah, so and then I juggle all sorts of objects. I juggle bowling balls, hedge trimmers, do unicycles. I incorporate music to the show. But, if for people who are not familiar with different types of shows, it's like a classic street circus show you would see at Faneuil Hall or Key West or in the harbor.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting lesson, the idea of whatever you see, you play off of. Whatever happens, happens, because things do happen. You see things in the audience. People throw things out. Things happen. And instead of ignoring it, jump in.
You have to jump in. I mean, for me, I have to jump in because also I do about 300 shows a year, and just running the same program, I couldn't do what is the most important part when it comes to comedy, which I believe is that you make every joke sound like you said it for the first time.
Right.
And if you could keep repeating the same material, which I do to a certain extent, of course, myself, but I challenge myself by just looking at things and just say what comes into my head.
Yeah, I do the same thing. When something gets thrown out, I jump in as fast as I can. As quick as I think of something, you throw it off the top of your head, you say something. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not.
But then again, then you move on, and hopefully you have enough material that, if something tanks that you just try it or improvised on, you can just sort of bring the audience back by, going to something that's been proven and it's funny. But most of the time, actually, it does work, and people appreciate it too, especially people who do see a lot of shows. They notice.
Now, what are your main venues? You mentioned street performing. What else?
I always sort of wanted to have my foot in all the doors. I've seen too many performers struggle in their careers, like focusing on one venue, and then these venues come harder to get by, or whatever happens, or you say something inappropriate on a cruise ship and all of a sudden they're all gone. Yeah. So I do cruise ships, I do fairs, I've done my fair amount of colleges, I do school assembly shows, I'm getting into libraries because I really like sleeping in my own bed. I have a lot of international festivals. Pretty much anywhere where you would see entertainment, you could find me.
Oh, the library market's a great market. That's one of my markets.
I like the fact that the audience really come because they want to see that show. It's been advertised. People who read are usually nicer people anyhow. And often it happens to be in a way that you can go home at the same night and sleep in your own bed. And that's something I'm really starting to appreciate more and more.
That's right. Did you do a lot of traveling, or have you done a lot of traveling?
I've traveled more than my fair share, I would say. Yeah, absolutely.
And do you have kids that you're away from for a long time?
Yeah, we have 4 children. We are Brady Bunch family. And so my wife and I, we both brought in 2 kids in the family. So we have a 25 and 26-year-old son. And then we have 2 15-year-old girls.
Yeah, I have a 21-year-old daughter and a 26-year-old daughter.
So, yay. So
I know what it's like growing up trying to stay home as much as you possibly can and entertain at the same time.
Yeah.
So now you said in the New York Times that comedy is more important than precision. So tell us your philosophies on that.
Well, it comes out of the necessity that I'm not really that great of a juggler. So in other words, like if I go to juggling convention and I practice in the corner, there's not going to be a big crowd around me going like, oh, look at his skills. So for me, it was always more important, how do I sell the tricks? And even the most difficult tricks I know how to do, they're often not in the show because I don't have a way, or I haven't found a way to make it interesting to an audience. Mm-hmm. If I decide to do a show, I do it for the people. So I have to see what do they like. And they do like the whole package. They like the tricks. They like the way it's packaged.
Yeah, I had a couple people on this podcast, a couple of jugglers, as a matter of fact. I could juggle 8 balls, but nobody really cares. I could juggle 4 and be more entertaining, and people will care.
I mean, I do believe that people do care when they see 8 balls, even if they might even remember that you did 15 balls. I mean, how many times you have people come up to you and say like, oh, I have a cousin who can juggle 17 balls.
Oh, yeah.
And they do appreciate it, but like, how long can you juggle 8 balls? It's going to be such a short flash of entertainment that you still, like if you have a 40-minute show and you juggle 8 balls, that still leaves you with 44 minutes and 50 seconds to do something else.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, would you suggest you took a lot of modern dance and mime when you were younger?
When I was young, when I speak younger, like, when I was in Germany, I wasn't a juggler at all. I didn't know how to juggle. I was not in show business. I was on my way to become a social worker, and I started working as a social worker, and I became a juggler overseas. And from the moment I realized that this is something I want to explore, I knew that I wanted explore anything that has to do with the performing arts. So when I came first to the United States and didn't have all the bookings I wanted, I had plenty of time. So I took a lot of classes in modern dance. I took mime workshops, anything I could get my hands on. And I still try to do the same thing if I have the time.
And that helped you a lot in your physical comedy?
In your physical, I mean, like being flexible and your body is your tool. So the more flexible and more variety you have, the more options you have.
Oh, yeah.
And also it's just fun and you meet nice people and it's nice to be in shape and learn new stuff. I try to get inspiration from anything, from bonsai to gardening to taekwondo, you name it.
Now, I was watching some of your videos, and on one of the videos, it's pretty funny. One of the videos I saw, a lady came from the audience and said something to you and then smacked you on the butt.
Oh, yeah. I invite these kind of situations. And for me, that's just comedy gold. I mean, and I do remember that. I mean, it happens more often than I can recall, things like this. And that's what I love about it. That's great. It makes people believe that what they're witnessing is truly happened in the moment and it just happened for them. And I think that's sort of my job, to make people believe, and I don't have to make them believe because it's really true, that there's really no other place I'd rather be than right now, right here.
Do you remember any of the crazy things that may have happened with audience members?
Oh, I remember lots of things. I had, for example, like just last week, I had a kid in my show who sort of snapped on me. He was like a 6-year-old and he started throwing stuff at me and he got like really mad, like almost like devilish Damien child mad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really funny because I really invite these kind of things and I realized like, oh wow, I really pushed that kid to his limits and he just snapped on me. His mom finally got him back and she got mad at him, and at this point I stopped the show and I told the mom, it's like, please don't get mad, because if anyone you should get mad at, it's me, because I really invited that kind of behavior. But I also know that the rest of the day I was looking over my shoulder because I expected that kid to jump out of a bush, and just take care of me.
Sabotage your show.
Yeah. No, and he had a point of it, sometimes I remember like my wife was already really mad at me often, like when I put the kids to bed, because I would do always the opposite. I would just charge them up with like tickling and wrestling. And by the time they're supposed to turn the light off, they were like all charged up. So I'm not really good in calming situations down, but I'm really good in hyping situations up.
You're going to be a great grandfather someday.
Oh, I can't wait, because then I can just say, okay, time to go home to mommy now.
That's right. Sugar them up and mess with them and then give them back.
Yeah.
Any other crazy audience stories you remember?
Crazy for odd reasons, some were dangerous, some were funny. Like I had a guy once, like I was on a 10-foot unicycle and somebody shouted, he has a gun, and then all of a sudden total panic broke out and everybody was running in different directions and running into the unicycle. And I kept my cool, but then the whole audience was gone and nobody had a gun.
Oh my.
I had cute things happen. I played the Frozen song, Let It Go, in my show. Mm-hmm. And at a show at Riverside County Fair, actually in California, I had a little girl come out and she was totally oblivious to what was going on. And she just started spinning. And usually the segment in my show is like 12 seconds long. And I just played the whole song and she kept spinning for the entire 2.5 minutes. And it was one of these magical moments where the whole audience just was in total joy. And she was, as I said, totally oblivious to what happened around her. There's a YouTube video for that. People can check it out. It's pretty funny.
That is golden. In fact, I have a saying. I don't know if it's my saying. How do you stop a tornado? You don't. You step away and watch it go.
Yeah.
Now, you had so many fan questions, Hilby, that I'm going to go right to our fan questions. You want some fan questions?
Oh, please.
All right. We're going to start with David Darwin. He's the one-man sideshow.
Oh, he's great. You know him?
He was on this podcast. I don't know him personally, but I interviewed him, and you can listen to him on episode 45.
Oh, cool.
The Variety Artist podcast.
Oh, I definitely do that, yeah.
Fascinating stuff. He talks about some really interesting stuff. He asks, would it be challenging for you to perform in Germany? Have you been doing the cartoonish German character for Americans for so long that working for a German-speaking crowd would be hard?
It's interesting because I saw that question, like, what was it? 20 years ago, I went on a ship. And I go to the cruise director always first thing and introduce myself, and I'm here, not to worry. And the cruise director was German. It's like, oh, this is exciting, German speaking. And And then it turns out the entire ship was German, and I'd never done my show in German. So I had to learn the hard way what works with a German audience and what doesn't. Yeah, and self-deprecating humor is great, but not if the self-deprecating subject is Germany and the whole audience is German.
That's right.
You know, like the classic joke, what would be a word without comedy? Germany. Yeah, you can't translate into German and expect that to be funny. You know, like other jokes. So you just have to let them go and translate some and see if they work. And what I did learn is that, you know, Germans have a great sense of humor. So that stereotype we have about Germans not having a sense of humor might be true on the outside, on the first impression you get from people. But overall, they have a great sense of humor. They're really like skills. So, for example, you can juggle 8 balls and you will get the response that 8 balls deserve is a German audience or European audiences in general, because they grew up more with circus than we have here in the United States or North America. After 2 weeks on the ship, my show was different and I quite enjoyed it actually. It was different, but still fun. And that said, I still do a fair amount of ships and often there's up to 100 people from Germany on the ship and they do enjoy the show in English for many various reasons. But doing my show in Germany was definitely challenging.
Do you find when there's a mixed audience, like, you know, some are from different countries and such, and then you have those 100 German folks, do you find that you can do the self-deprecating humor and they themselves find it humorous?
Absolutely, because number one, it's not in the native language, it's in English. And also it comes from a good place. I think that's very important to me, that like if I offended, I achieved the opposite what my intentions were. So, and I think and hope that it becomes very obviously once you get to see me live in person, that my intentions are all hopefully pure and I like to think so at least. And I think that's very important.
All right. So Louis Fox, you know Louis?
I know Louis, of course, another great performer right there.
A great episode 72 of The Variety Artist. Awesome, unbelievable. Hilby. Oh, by the way, Louis Fox is also called the one-man sideshow like David Darwin. So they're going to have a wrestling match to the death to see who keeps that.
East Coast versus West Coast. So I think there's enough room for both of them.
In between.
No, my son is in a band called The Long Shot, and I Googled it the other day, and like there's like 18 bands that call it The Long Shot.
Oh, you just got to get famous first.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. He says, Hilby got me started investing in the stock market many years ago. Does he have any stock tips?
I try to stay away from that because I can't say that I'm really good at it. But I do believe that since we are, like, as my son used to always call me, self-unemployed, we have to take care of everything ourselves, including our retirement and our health insurance and so forth. So investing can be a great way. And I have a certain philosophy about investing. My philosophy is usually that I try not to give tips to people, but I do believe that invest in what you believe in. Like if you go to Walmart every day, not that I'm not supporting Walmart myself, but if you happen to shop there every day, you might as well be part of the company and own them. If you drink Starbucks coffee every day, you would be a fool not putting some money into that company too. If you really believe in it, if you use Apple product, why not own some of that company? But that's everybody's personal decision. I would never give anybody a tip because some of them have worked out for me greatly and some of them have not worked out. But yeah, that's my philosophy. And also, I like to invest in things that if the money's gone, then at least invest in something which I thought would make a difference.
There you go, Louis. That's all you get.
That's all you get, Louis.
Conrad Cologne, a terrific magician out of New Jersey, asks, what advice would you give someone who wants to enter the festival industry?
Festival, I assume he means festival and fairs. And festivals, the way I did in the beginning, I just showed up and street performed. I did often really well, and then often the festivals hired me the next year. The fairs are a little bit trickier. You have to go to the showcases. So get either an agent. It depends on your personality. If you're a personality who's really good at calling people back and hustling and making calls and getting promo stuff together and sending out postcards, by all means, do it yourself. If you don't, get an agent, who represents the fair industry. And there's plenty of them out there. He can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to give some to him.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice.
Go to the conventions. But if you're the person who's really self-motivated and who has all the great displays, which I am not at all, have somebody represent you and not to represent yourself. If not, have somebody else represent you.
Oh, yeah, makes sense. How about some advice on showcasing itself?
Showcasing itself, it's dependent what showcases. I've done my fair share on college showcases and just having it with your best stuff. The great thing about showcases in colleges is that's the best college show you probably do from all the bookings you will get out of it, because the whole place is full with people. They're there to have a good time. You have, depending on the showcase, anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So you can really hit them with your good stuff.
Yeah.
Know your audience. I mean, like these are young kids for showcases, like for colleges. Hit them with material that's appropriate for them. And same thing if you do the senior citizen market, then perhaps change your material to that it reflects that market.
Right. Yeah, the library market's a funny market because they also have showcases, at least here in Southern California we do. I know there are some across the country, not all states have them, but it's an odd thing because you're showcasing your show for a family audience, yet the people who are watching are all adults.
That's true, but then one would hope that they have enough imagination to know that this is going to translate really well to family audiences.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah, and I often have that, like where people, like both ways. I have people say to me, it's like, oh, can you adopt your show to make it more like grown up and more comedy club and perhaps, a little bit more naughty. And it's like, yeah, if I have to, I can. And the same thing, if I do elementary schools, it takes me sometimes like a minute or two to get back in the rhythm.
All right, Alan Sands, comedy hypnotist out of New York, says, here's a straitjacket question. Have you ever failed your escape or the longest it has taken you to get out?
It's really funny because I do have a straitjacket. It's actually Gazo's old straitjacket.
Wait, what is your straitjacket escape?
I bought it, it's a long story, but I used to live down in Key West with Gazo, and I would buy a lot of his stuff because Gazo is often broken, and and then I would just buy some of his stuff, and one of them was a straitjacket. And one day I was avoiding doing some of the chores, getting ready for the wedding of my wife and I. And I remember she's being in the backyard decorating for the party before, and I put the straitjacket on, and I was on a unicycle, and I came out, and she's like, "Hey, can you just really help me, honey, really quick?" And she was so flabbergasted by the idea that she's working really hard to get the wedding ready, while I had nothing better to do than being on a straitjacket on a unicycle. And I got out of that straitjacket really, really quick. So no, I've never failed. I never done it in the show, and there's various reasons. Number one is like my show is so physical already, so like just the idea of escaping out of the straitjacket outside in heat, that's just the whole sweating aspect, the logistics of having to wear a different microphone to do it.
Oh yeah,
the fact that it has been done so many times by so many people is daunting, because if I would do it, I would want to have a little bit of an angle to it.
Oh yeah,
and I just haven't come up with something that I thought would do justice to the routine.
I have a couple of straitjacket stories. I used to end my show in a straitjacket. Two different types of things. I would do a children's birthday party where I would escape out of a straitjacket, and then it'd be hard and tough and rough, like a straitjacket routine would be. And then I'd put the small child in this giant straitjacket that I would wear. So the joke being that they're so little, they just basically hop out of it.
Yeah. And quite frankly, for me with straitjackets, to be honest, is like whenever I see somebody in a straitjacket, it's like, well, of course he gets out. Why would he get in? Nobody in the history of straitjackets has never not gotten out, because if that had been the case, we would know by now about it.
They'd still be in it.
That would be a great story, yeah. And I remember like being down in Key West, and in Gaza once like took duct tape and duct taped up the guy in the straitjacket. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever, because he couldn't get out then anymore.
Oh no. Yeah,
it was a prank, and he's full of them. And I thought it was a beautiful prank because it sort of showed, well, now you get out.
One time I did, do you know who Tommy Lee is? The drummer for Motley Crue?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So I did his kid's birthday party years ago, 25, 30 years ago. So I'm finishing up the end of my show, and I'm doing the straitjacket routine, and we're right next to a swimming pool. And I had never escaped out of a straitjacket in a swimming pool before.
Oh, I know where that's going. Go ahead.
You know where this is going. So they wrap me up. Daryl Hannah's there. She does the crotch strap thing, and I get all wrapped up in this thing. And I was a competitive swimmer when I was young, a competitive swimmer. So I figured, well, I'm not going to drown. Nothing bad's going to happen. So I say to Tommy Lee, well, do you want me to jump in the pool with this? I'm fully straitjacketed. And he says, yeah, jump in the pool. And he looks over at his lifeguard and he says, hey, are you watching? And lifeguard goes, yeah, I'm watching. So I jump in the pool, and I think to myself, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go underwater. I'll escape out of the straitjacket. Everybody will yell and cheer. It'll be a great story. So I jump in the pool, and what I didn't realize is that the straitjacket filled up with air.
Oh, okay. That's different than what I thought would happen. But go ahead.
And I couldn't go underwater. So here I am flopping and flipping on the top of the pool, here on the top of the water. And I finally escaped, but I think it was really lame because I didn't go underwater at all.
It's funny though, like once again, I mean, you have tons of opportunity to highlight it and make that funny. But I thought like when the straitjacket gets wet, it sort of contracts, so it gets tighter. So it would have to be much harder to get out actually.
I wish that were the truth, but it's not. It was awful. All right, we'll go on. Eric Haynes, the one-man band. You know Eric?
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, another great show. Yeah, I love him.
He says, does Lederhosen allow airflow on a hot day?
Really good question, actually. Really, really, really good question, because I used to wear like real Lederhosen, and Lederhosen means in German, the translation is leather pants. So they're made out of like cowhide. So they're very thick leather, not made for comfort in that sense. And unless you buy the tourist version, the new ones, they don't have silk lining. And so they're really hard on your skin. And when they break, they're really difficult to fix. They're really difficult to clean. So for the last 5-6 years, I have custom made Lederhosen that I made actually out of corduroy. So technically, they're not Lederhosen, they're corduroy hosen.
Corduroyhosen.
And they have fantastic airflow, by the way, and they're easy to clean.
Yeah, that's the answer. I thought he was kind of joking, but...
No, great question, actually. I thought the same thing. It's like, yeah, that could be taken in a funny direction, but it's true. That's actually a good question, It occupies my mind.
Yeah, Eric. All right. I took a bunch of questions from the Hilby, the Skinny German Juggle Boy Facebook page, the fan page. So if you are not on there, jump in there because there's a lot of fun postings there. So I'll give you some questions from your fans.
Please.
All right. So Valerie Burrows asks, is juggling cups a new thing for him, or is it harder than plungers and swords to juggle?
It's different. Harder and not harder is how hard you want to make it. Once again, if I'm at a juggling convention with my shaker cups, nobody would really stop to watch me do my tricks. There's plenty of people who do way more. And I think the record from Niels Dunker is like 8 or something, or more, probably more.
I think it's more. He was on this podcast. You can listen to him talking about breaking that world record.
No, they're fun. They're different. I quite like them. And they're great for the show because they're loud. So they attract people from far away. And I think they invite a lot of a unique comedy to it. I wouldn't say harder. As I said, it's how hard you want to make it be. It's different. So in other words, I taught people how to use a shaker cups who had no idea how to juggle. And so it's a slightly different skill. And
they're colorful and they probably do draw a crowd because they're colorful and visual and fun.
Yeah, I like them. And then I'm always surprised how well the audience responds to them in comparison to other props. I think they respond to them much more than pretty much what I did. I took my cigar box routine and adopted the jokes for the shaker cups.
Okay.
And I haven't done this cigar boxes in almost 10 years.
That's great. Bringing back a routine that you used to do with just a different prop.
Oh, yeah. I mean, many jokes are adoptable, I think, for whatever prop you use.
All right, Jojo, I like that name. Jojo, I wonder what is his first name and what is his last name. I don't know. All right, Jojo says, seen him in Rochester, New York. Awesome! Exclamation point. How does he connect with event organizers and follow up after event also?
I'm horrible. I mean, horrible shouldn't be the word. I'm just not good at it. I'm not fast. I'm probably good at it once I do it. But often it's too late to find out if I was good at it or not because it's just too late. And I wish I would be a little bit better. I do try to make sure that everything is in place now. And my wife really helped me with rearranging my contract so that most questions are answered by the time we sign the contract. So like such as directions, parking pass, and so forth. I also want to make sure that I have a to-go-to person at the fair or festival. But also I'm a really firm believer that once you hit the festival, bother them as little as you can, whoever runs the event, because they don't need you to call them 5 times a day with questions and so forth. So in other words, have everything in place before you get there. I remember the very first fair I ever did, New York State Fair 24 years ago. I went to the office of the fair manager and I asked him what he wanted me to do. And he just looked at me and said, like, well, looking at your contract and knowing what we pay you, you better know what you're going to do. And then he said, if you see me at your show, this is not a good thing.
Okay.
That's sort of like, but he said it in a kind way. So, and it really made sense to me. It's they have so much stuff to do themselves that they don't need you to be another hurdle in their day. And they know exactly how you're doing as a performer. Word gets out, people talk. Be as independent as you can, have all the answers to your questions beforehand. And what I do usually afterwards, I write a nice email within a week saying thank you for having me, and I hope that my show was a valuable asset to your program, and let's do it again. And I think it's been working. One thing I do pride myself in, that whatever venues I do or fairs and festivals I do, I usually do them again and again and again and again. And I like that, like predictability. So
you're obviously doing something right.
Something right, yeah, I think so. Or maybe I'm so cheap, I have no idea.
No, I think you're probably just really good. Joshua Schuer, I think that's how you say his name. Of all the performances you've done, is there one that stands out to you the most, or was the most memorable?
I thought that question, and I thought, I could come up with a lot of examples, that stuff that sort of happened during the show. But what really stands out to me is what often happens after the show, and the fact that we have a job, a career. We have people tell us instantly. The response is instant. People tell us what you just did matters, and that's sort of what stands out. So, like for example, I did once a show, and a woman come up to me afterwards, and she said, my son and I, who's a teenager, we've been having a rough year. We don't have really much in common, and we fight a lot. And that was the first time in a year where we spent an hour together. Enjoying the same thing, and then we talked about it for like 6 hours afterwards on our way home, and she just thanked me for that. Wow. And so like that stands out more than something that happens during the show, like that we really should not take that lightly, that what we do really matters to people, and how beautiful it is that we've been told, because not everybody gets that in their jobs. Even so, what they do matters often even more so what we do. That's something that stands out to me more than anything else.
Yeah, it's true. We sometimes do forget, because we do shows over and over and over and over again. We sometimes forget the effect that it can have.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you don't know how many kids you inspire to become a magician themselves, or so I think it's very important to be open about it and take it in and share it as much as you can.
Nice. So Susan Gala says, who inspires you?
Everybody. Really. I can get inspiration from anything, but like when it comes to like my favorite comedians, for example, or people who are, if I could go back in time and live their life, I would do something like Buster Keaton is one of my favorite people of all time, and so he's a huge inspiration for me. But then like anyone I see who follows their dreams and really indulges in something that other people might shun, and like, oh, that's not going to happen, and then like my wife inspires me with her photography and her eye and her detail. So I draw inspiration from anything. This inspires me, for example, talking to you.
Thanks. I'm inspired talking to you. All right. Well, we're going to get a little silly. Okay. Bill Fraser. Do you know Bill personally?
Yeah, I don't know. No, not too well, but yeah, we know each other. Yeah.
Okay. He says, I dare you to ask him, when is he going to add some comedy to his act?
It's I don't know. I've been trying so hard. It's been rough, but I might actually use that in my show because I got a laugh. So, it's interesting because I never set out to be a comedic juggler. I just I love juggling, and I thought, hey, let's see what happens with that. And then I just realized that comedy really works for my act. And since I enjoy comedy myself, it just happened to be that way. I have another show called Circus Wunderbar where I do all the characters I would love to be but could never be, like a serious magician. There's just no way I could ever be a serious Las Vegas style magician. I always feel like, really, people, you don't get it, you stupid people. Come on, look, this is how I did it. Or like, I would love to be a Las Vegas style juggler who doesn't have to be funny and just juggle for 17 minutes, like, Francis Bourne or something. But it's not going to happen. So yeah, so
here I am.
So in other words, I hope I already did it, but it's up to him to decide. I'm not going to say that I'm a comedic juggler or not. That's other people's job, and I think I've been doing okay.
Yeah, Bill, you got to get back to us on that. See him again and
write me some good jokes, would you?
Yeah, write him some good jokes. There you go. All right. Gwen Tolly Lemmerman asks, are you just as funny at home?
Well, once again, I have to ask my family, but we're all funny at home, and it's a different funny kind of thing. But it's really interesting when I tell a joke or something and my kids like it. I know it's going to be great. It's going to be a fun joke.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to think so, but not more or less funny than any father who's a good father, I hope. That said, if something sticks with my wife or my kids, I know this is going to be good in the show.
Oh yeah. Some people come to me after a show and they go, gosh, you must be hilarious at home. And I'm like, well, no, I'm just the average guy that sits on his couch and watches TV like anybody else.
No, it's funny you mention that because my kids, they came with me the other day to the fair and they usually roll their eyes on the inside when other people ask them. It's like, so is he just as funny as home?
Yeah.
It's how do you answer that question? They're always really polite and sweet about it.
Yeah, but that would be exhausting.
No, it would be exhausting for me. And as I said, I'm not setting out to be funny. It just comes automatically. It just happens to be. I think the comedy really came from like, there's no way I can do the same 30 minutes over and over again. Even so, it does even appear like this. I often feel like, really, you're coming to the show for the sixth time? I mean, it's sort of more or less the same show. But then I'm always surprised when people say to me, it's like, oh, I like how you mix things up and, play around. And yeah, that's why I do comedy.
I think sometimes if they see you over and over again, they're kind of in on the joke. When something crazy happens, they'll be like, oh, that didn't happen in the last show. Oh, so they're kind of in on it.
Yeah, and also sometimes it's fun to watch an audience.
All right, so those are all the questions I have from the Hilby, the Skinny German Juggle Boy Facebook page.
My people.
Join in. Those are your people, my friend. Yeah, we're going to move on to fact or something John just made up. Sound like fun?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Is it fact? Or is it something John just made up?
All right, here's how it works. I'm going to give you a headline, and then you're going to tell me if it's true or not. If it is true, tell me a little bit more about it. Sound good? Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
First headline. Justin Bieber was at Hilby's show.
And he didn't like it. But you know what? It's not true.
Oh, it's not true?
No.
Oh, no. I thought that was a true one.
No, that's not true. But I have my personal relationship with Justin Bieber nonetheless, because my girls are Justin Bieber fans. And I did a joke in the show that made him look not too good. So I had to promise to change it. And now I have a whole Justin Bieber song twice in my show, and I make him look good, actually.
Oh, I've seen him twice myself. When my 21-year-old now was a teenager, we went and saw him twice.
Think what you want about him. He's a performer after all, just as we are. And he made so many people happy, and he has a great voice and he writes some of his own stuff and he plays his own music. It's up to everyone else to decide. I find myself snapping along to some of his songs, and I have people emailing me and say, like, I wish you had never played that Justin Bieber song in your show because now I like him. Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, I always say you have to respect somebody who has hundreds of thousands or, in his case, millions of followers. They're doing something right.
I don't know if I want it that much, but hey, let's find out. Come out to my Facebook page and see what happens.
All right, we're going to go to the next one. Hilby started out as the skinny Russian magic man.
That was my fifth character, if that would have been. But no. The obese Polish sword swallower was another one. That was a no.
What is it?
The obese Polish sword swallower.
Do you do that character?
No, that's another no, but it would be a character I would come up with because people ask me, I was like, well, what would happen if you gain weight? And then I come up with like versions like, the obese Polish sword swallower or something.
Yeah. Well, how do you stay skinny?
You know what? My sister is eternally mad at me for like eating twice as much food and my metabolism is just burning and I don't gain weight. That said, my show is very active. So it's just about 300 shows a year. I keep myself in shape. I like to take care of myself and eat good food. And I run and I do yoga and swim and do all the things that are fun. Life is more fun when you're in shape.
Yeah. All right, next one. Hilby made his first cash street performing at an outdoor market in Islamabad.
That's true.
True.
That's a true story, yeah.
The first cash you made was there. What were you doing there for your first cash that you made?
Well, I was a bit of a hippie, wandering around Asia, and I learned how to juggle in India, and then I went to Pakistan next. And I don't know if you've been to India or Pakistan or any other Asian countries, you stand out already as is, and then you juggle in public. That's where you practice, I guess. And you would always have an audience. And I remember not practicing, actually remember going to the market and it's like, hey, what happens if I put my head out? And I took my head out, and sure enough, I made 50 rupees.
Ooh.
That was enough to buy vegetables for the day and to have a big meal in the evening. I from the moment I learned how to juggle, I learned how to juggle pretty late in life. I think I was 22 or 23. Mm-hmm. I really knew this is something I'm going to explore to the fullest and see what happens.
All right, next one. Our last one, actually. While opening for Weird Al, Hilby came out on stage to find his road case was locked.
That's a true story. That was really funny now. It's one of these stories where, like, in retrospect, it was really funny. At the time, it was a nightmare, and I probably died 1,000 times inside.
I'm sure.
Like, I had one of these road cases like everyone have, but I didn't even know that there's such a thing as a key for them. After rehearsal and so forth, we all went out for lunch. I guess one of the stagehands thought, oh, well, let's close this case, which I had preset since I was the opening act. And he locked my case. And when I came out, I tried to open it and I couldn't. And then we couldn't find the stagehand. So we had to get like a long screwdriver.
And this is going on during the show?
Oh, there's a 2,000-seat theater full, looking at us. You know, the best compliment people, not the best, one of the good stuff people can say to you when something happens that really makes you sweat on the inside and terrifies you, and then people come up to you after the show and they say, oh, I like that new part of your show, or they thought that was intentionally. So many people thought it was part of the gag, the way I sold it, I guess. No, I think that's your job. You're gonna have to fake it. If you just have to run with it as far as you can. You know, if you can't hide it, you highlight it. You know, if you can't hide it, paint it red. That kind of philosophy. So go see what happens, and then it worked out. The case eventually opened, and people thought it was part of the show.
Oh, and you just went on and did your act?
I often start my show without props, anyhow, just to work on some jokes and warm up the crowd and so forth. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, but it was still, I felt really uncomfortable on the inside. And it was a funny story, and we were all laughing.
Oh, yeah. It's funny now.
Like also Weird Al, I mean, Weird Al Yankovic, I would assume. And his people are my people. I mean, it's just like such fun-loving people. It's like, that's one of my best audiences I can have, that kind of demographic.
That was fact. Or something John just made up.
So now, Hilby, do you have some advice for the beginner?
Beginner, yeah. As I say, like, do your show. Just do it. Pay attention to your show. Take any opportunity. Don't ever think you're better than anyone else or you're too good for something. Make your experiences and just jump on every opportunity from street performing. See what you like. Try then to go with the stuff you like, down to venues you don't like. But at the beginning, try everything. Just do your show over and over and over again. Don't ask for money unless you know you're worth it and they're going to have no choice but to paying you more. Just do your show.
And actually, even before I ask you this next question, I looked on your Facebook page as I was kind of messing around this morning and getting prepared for this interview. I noticed a lot of people post on your Facebook page. Is that intentional? Do you do something to have them do that, or do they do that kind of naturally, organically?
No, and that's, as we talked about earlier, that it's so nice to know that what you do matters. And, a lot of, I get a lot of recommendations and 5-star reviews and not to blow my own horn, but yes, I am actually right now. But I like it. It's nice. As I said, it's a great forum for people to come together, and it's nice for you to see that what you do matters. So I invite it, and I really enjoy it at the same time.
So do you invite them when you're taking the picture, or
no,
is it organic?
That's the one thing I don't like to do. Like I sell fridge magnets after my show, and on my fridge magnets there's my website, or when I sell postcards, there's a website and there's a link. I like not to promote my Facebook page. I don't actually. And unless I have a joke for it or it comes up, actually, I often say the opposite, like I do joke about a fireman and then at the end I say like, don't tag me on your Facebook page because my mom's listening. No, I try not to promote it, but it's the 21st century. People take a picture, they type in Google Hilby and then ta-ta, there it is. And it's nice to see that people care enough that they come and leave a message, which would take some effort.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
If I had all those, I'd be stalking my own page too.
My wife always says like, oh, you have to respond to your people. And sometimes I'm not. So I apologize for the people that I'm not always the best. I chose what I do for many reasons. One of the reasons has to be that you can be lazy. I do like that about what I do. It's like when I perform, I give it everything I have and I'm right there. I'm fully there. But I also love to be done and just don't care about it at all for a while. That's coming up, by the way, in next week.
That's the lazy time.
It's a lazy time, and I do enjoy that about it, that we do have a lot of spare time. If you think about it, like even if you do the fairs, I work like 2 hours, 3 hours a day max, and then the rest is off. Like it's really tough to complain to people about working on cruise ships because you work twice a week of a total of 3 hours, that much. And who wants to listen to a guy complaining about that?
All right, how about some advice for the working pro there, Hilby?
Stay humble. I was talking with Bandoloni. I don't know if you know Paul David Bandoloni. He's one of my favorite acts on the circuit. He's a one-man band. We were talking about exactly that. And I said, yeah, remind yourself that you're only as good as your last show. And then he said to me, I subscribe to the philosophy, you're only as good as your next show. And so keep these things in mind, like don't take things for granted. Things can change on a dime, and enjoy that you can see what you do matters instantly. Not many people have that luxury. I think just don't take things for granted, stay humble, share your gift with other people, and don't think you're better than anyone.
Nice. Why don't you give us a recommended book and then I'll let you go because it's an hour. How about that?
Here we go. I just got it in the mail and I'm really excited about it. And it's called Totally Useless Skills by Rick Davis. And it's out of print, but you can get it on Amazon. Totally Useless Skills? Totally Useless Skills. 100 great pastimes of practically no redeeming value. And the great thing about it is it's anything from like how to balance a spoon, like have it stick to your nose, to like, the finger tricks where you make a square one hand and a triangle in the other hand. I have a knowledge of quite a bit, so I can do about a dozen of them. And I found them not only rewarding for yourself and entertaining and challenging, but I think they're also a great tool to have as a human being or as a performer for that matter. I do workshops on ships where I teach people how to juggle and I intermingle them with one of these useless skills. And I teach them people and people love them. It's challenging them. They can be funny. To the point where I just did a stage show in Erie County for 12 days and I did a whole 5-minute bit in the beginning about useless skills. So they're fun for the show, they're fun to challenge yourself, and it's great for sharing. You're at an airport, you see a crying kid, you not always have a balloon with you or a magic trick, so you just show them some finger tricks and challenge the kid. It's just great thing to know how to do. I'm going to go order that now. Half of my show is useless stuff. Oh, perfect. You're going to love it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Hilby, for doing my show. That was fun. That was really fun. Thanks. Now, if someone wants to get a hold of you, should they email you or Facebook, or what's the best way? As we just talked about it, like you type Hilby into Google. There's not too many Skinny German Juggle Boy out there last time I checked. So I'm really easy to find on Facebook. You can find my website, and also I think one of the questions earlier was about showcasing and getting to the fair circuit. So that person can send me an email and I'm more than happy to share some more stuff. Perfect. You've been very giving. I appreciate everything, my friend. I'm a giver. Give. Thank you, Hilby, again for doing my show. And you can reach me on my Facebook page. Just shoot me out a message. And while you're there, join my Facebook group at The Variety Artist, where you can ask me to ask questions of our guests, like my friend Hilby. And join in with our Free-for-All Fridays and Marketing Mondays. Marketing Mondays are once a month. It's really kind of cool. You just put your toughest marketing challenges and somebody will answer you. It's kind of neat. Go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun. That's all for this episode of The Variety Artist, but your journey continues on our website.
Go to thevarietyartist.com for more strategies, insight, and resources, as well as show notes on today's guest to assist you in your career. We'll see you on the next episode of The Variety Artist. But until then, go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.